Hi folks, this is Jason Moore with MTGOacademy.com, and we're doing a deck tech for an updated version of the Archaeology class deck. This is a rather different version from where we started in my previous article, and this one is a little more spell-based rather than permanent-based. So let's take a look at this deck and what's going on here. First of all, I want to thank Paulo7, a friend of mine on MTGO, for helping me out a lot, giving me some advice on the deck and making some recommendations. So we're playing 25 land now. We've gone up one land. We've got 4 Glimmer Posts, 4 Cloud Posts, 5 mountains, and 12 islands. So having the extra land actually helps us a bit with a new card in the deck, Compulsive Research, which I'll be talking about in just a moment. So starting with our 1-drops, we've got a 1/1 split of Magma Spray and Electrostatic Bolt. And these are 2 removal spells that we'll want against different threats. They're both tutorable with Mystical Teachings. The Magma Spray is good against Tortured Existence because it exiles. It's also very good against Loyal Cathar, Young Wolf, anything with Persist or Undying that we just want to remove and not have to deal with. The Electrostatic Bolt will take on Spire Golems, Razor Golems, and Mirror Enforcers. So both can take out any 2 toughness creatures, but I wanted to split 1 and 1 in order to have that versatility depending on what we actually face. Playing 4 Preordain, this is a cheap card selection spell that we typically won't be playing on turn 1. Generally, I like to wait until I know exactly what I want to draw into with the Preordain before I use it. Then we also have 4 Flame Slash, and this is a nice, cheap general removal spell that hits a lot of creatures in the format. 4 toughness really helps out, or 4 damage really helps out against Affinity in particular. For our 2-drops, we've got a single Seismic Shudder, and this is a concession to Storm. I don't want to automatically lose game 1 against Storm, so I've got this as a Teachings target, and we have more in the sideboard. 2 Prohibit. It's a nice counterspell that works well early in the game, but it's also relevant late game because most decks in this format have cheap spells to cast. We also have a single Deprive, which is a new addition to the deck. It's a hard counter. It also lets us rebuy Glimmer Posts and gain some life. We've got 4 Prophetic Prism. This is for mana fixing. It's also a nice target with Ghostly Flicker. Helps us draw some cards later on in the game. Now speaking of Ghostly Flicker, I've dropped down to 2 rather than 3, and that's simply because I was seeing too many copies of this in my opening hand, and it's not very good in your opening hand. You want to see this card in the mid game or the late game. It doesn't do a lot for you on turn 3, so we dropped down to 2, but it's still a very important part of this deck. Single Capsize can sometimes be a win condition. It is expensive, but being able to remove your opponent's permanents or to repurchase some of your own can definitely help. It's a late game card that we may board out in some matchups, believe it or not, but for the most part it's not bad, especially as a Teachings target. 3 Compulsive Research. This really helps us get some card advantage, and we will typically be able to pitch a land to this card. And this is replacing Seagate Oracle, because Seagate Oracle does replace itself, but the Compulsive Research actually gets us ahead on cards. Still got the 3 Archaeomancer. This is a card that I've been very impressed with so far in my testing, and she goes hand in hand with Ghostly Flicker here, and hopefully we'll be able to demonstrate how effective she actually is. Single Mystical Teachings. This will usually grab a Capsize or a Ghostly Flicker. It also is not uncommon to get a counterspell or a removal spell, so it comes in handy quite often. We've got 2 Serrated Arrows. This is for the aggressive creature matchups, and also a nice target for Ghostly Flicker, able to get several uses out of these arrows and take out more than one creature. And we drop down to 2 Muldrifter, and that's because it is one of the more expensive cards in the deck. We don't want too many in our opening hand, and having 2 so far has been good enough for me. It's one of the best Ghostly Flicker targets that we have available to us, so I like having it in the deck. Now we've got 2 Condescend. This is a card that we actually will board out quite a bit in some matchups, but having a counterspell with the added utility of being able to scry, so you set up your next subsequent plays, I think is pretty useful in general. And lastly, we have a single Rolling Thunder, and this is our primary win condition in the deck. It can also be used as a board sweeper, and with Archaeomancer we can repurchase it and end up using it to win the game later on. So looking at the sideboard here, we'll start with the Ancient Grudges. We've got 3 of those. Those will come in against Affinity, but I also bring them in against White Weenie to deal with the Bone Splitters and Razor Golems. And sometimes I'll bring them in against Spire Golem decks as well, so variations of Mono Blue. 2 Dispel comes in against the Control decks, the Mirror Matches, as well as the Blue-Red Storm decks and Grixis Storm decks. So that is because they play rituals, and a lot of their rituals are instants, and sometimes most of the time they'll be bringing in some counter spells against us as well. Got the Magma Spray, the second copy of that in this deck, 4 mono green Stompy to take out cards like Young Wolf, also for White Weenie to take out cards like Loyal Cathar. We probably will bring it in against Tortured Existence as well. Got 3 Pyroblasts, obviously for blue decks, bringing it in against Fairies and Mono Blue Control. Can even come in the Mirror Match to hit opposing counterspells and capsizes and things like that. 2 Seismic Shudder. This is most often coming in against the Empty the Warren Storm decks. We can also bring it in sometimes against Goblins or Mono Green if we so choose. And we've got 4 Stone Rain, and the Stone Rain come in to punish Storm for being very land light, and they're very dependent on their lands that can produce red. And we also bring it in against the Mirror Match, where our main game plan is going to be to deny them mana and try and take over the game with a capsize, or perhaps have more mana than them so that we can win the counterspell wars. So that's the 75 that we're running with. I hope you guys enjoyed this deck tech, and stay tuned to see how it performs as we take this deck out and take it for a spin. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later.